He hane washte chue.
Hani Washte. Good morning to everybody. First of all, I want to say thank you to Mitankala here, my little sister Denise, for faithfully always getting me prepped up for the show. I really appreciate that because I'm so computer illiterate. so,
It's because I love ya.
yeah. Oh, thank you. I love you too. I want to start off with a prayer. This prayer is going to be directed to all the natural disasters and how it's affecting people out there. So if you can kind of say prayers along with me too for the people that are sitting underwater and that are covered in snow, especially back on the reservation when we don't really have very much, to help the people. Our tribe does a lot with what they have. So hey, tonkashila ampetule wopila tanka daku yaku na ke ampetuon yaku he wopila tanka ampetule tonkashila watcheke yawa he wana ha mini akatha oyate na ha wamakashka yakabhina watcheke yawa yakte daku washte elna unjum de na US government ki etjustikel oichaking de FEMA hina request ya pinatukashila etjustikel hinana una ha oichakyok de wayas on kuja on antipi ki gnunim hinatukashila watcheke yawa yablile ambetule hotunkashila unshika unshila hina na unjik umpi ho popula. Good morning, everybody. I tell you, this topic of living in two worlds has really got me. Well, I guess it's a challenge for me because I say every day I wake up and have to question myself almost every day. Where I'm going to go ahead and find peace and to know that I could process a lot of things that are happening. Living 6 decades, almost 60 years, almost 70 years now. But I've seen a lot, and I've seen a lot of changes. And so today I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the challenges that I face every day, especially living in the urban area, because I've really been pretty much pressured into kind of seeing how life should be here. According to society's rules, and then knowing the way I grew up, knowing the compassion that we should have. So with that, I wanted to start off with saying, what are the challenges that I have in today's world? Every day I wake up, and especially today in a society of the corporate world, I just really see a big difference, and I'm kind of stuck in that situation of knowing, like even at my job, I can see the big difference. It's all about profit, and the humanity part is missing because we don't even get the nurturing or the positive strokes for working hard. It's all about push, 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 I guess I think the thing about the corporate world is the robotic part of society, and I have to really deal with my emotions, I guess, or my thoughts on that. But I also understand just watching people. The topic or the main thing that came to my mind is there's so many subcultures, so many cultures in this society today, and one thing that I'm thankful for is to know that I've traveled quite a bit with some of my work and seen different tribes that have different beliefs and different ways as well as subcultures. I mean, we look at different communities, the bikers, the farmers, the ranchers. I mean, just like even this weekend, we have our powwow hounds, is what we call them, the people that love to dance and celebrate, the powwows. And this is beginning of the powwow season here in Denver. I mean, it's the largest powwow that starts off our powwow season. So when you look at subcultures, there's so many, and all of them have different belief systems. We all have a different thought process in regards to how these people live. But what comes out of it, I think, the stereotyping, and that's one of my biggest challenges living out here, especially knowing that I also know that our people not being exposed to the dominant society, to society itself. A lot of them have tunnel vision. They don't expand their mind to try and understand. And luckily, I've been blessed just to try and have an open mind about different people, and every day I see different things. I think we all love people. I think we can understand that, we all need each other as human beings. But sometimes the behavior and the belief systems, we don't like each other because of that. And that's the biggest challenge that I have. And boy, my thought just goes every day. I mean, the idle time that I have at work, when I'm thinking, that's all it is how do I function, to be at peace or to find some contentment with some of these challenges, because I also don't agree with some of the things. And so I think one of the things that really came to my mind was how do I accept the way things are out there? What is the main question of the characteristics of American culture and how we live in it? Because I can go back to the reservation, and I could feel the joy and the renewal when I'm probably at my roots. I mean, they always say we go back to our roots, and that's where I grew up. I grew up on the reservation with the contentment of our ceremonies and the prayers and some of the old Lakota values. And then when you come back out here to the urban setting, you're nobody. You strive, and boy, do I work hard to be accepted. And I think I've done that well. I at one time in one of my talk shows, I had says I'm like a chameleon. I change my colors. I can say I'm acculturated, because I can adapt to any environment, or I could be traditional when I go home. But even that word, being traditional, is kind of iffy, because what is really being traditional? We don't live by the values, the virtues, the beliefs that we have. So those are some of my struggles living out here, because in a spur of the moment or even day to day, I can say, boy, I change. I change in regards to what I see around me. And that is very difficult for somebody that has grown up with a different set of values or a belief system. And then you come out here and you get pressured by what's around you. And so that's a big challenge for me every day. And I see so close to me some of the immigrants that have come to the United States. I've got a supervisor that's from Afghanistan. And if we don't know people, if we're not aware of people, we stereotype, we judge just because somebody else makes a judgment on them, and you have to be out there to go ahead and really know for yourself. And I have done that, I think, to open myself up, and sometimes, I'm rejected, and that's something that I had to work on, is the rejection by some of the people, especially growing up when I didn't know any better, when I didn't stand strong with myself to know that I could love myself and like myself for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a lot of people, especially women, and nowadays we're still struggling with that in today's culture, and I just can't understand that because we grew up knowing women were sacred.
Mm-hmm.
We have the ability to nurture. We're capable of knowing that we can pass on that nurturing to people, and also to see the sacredness of women, because like when Poston says, we are the portal to life. We bring life, and so that makes it much harder for us women. But anyway, those are just some of the things I wanted to say, and I don't know if anybody has questions or if you have any questions, but I can delve into other stuff here about stereotyping.
Del, I have a question for you. What do you feel is the most or the broadest misconception about Native Americans, or as some down south say, American Indians in the United States? What do you feel is like the number one misconception or misperception?
Well, I wouldn't say the number one. There's probably several factors. From the beginning, we were always known as, like if we talk about Indians or the things that come out, they know us as drunk Indians.
Okay.
And then the other part of it is, just because I heard it throughout my lifetime, we're dirty Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And so those were the things that, we combat daily. But, people don't understand how people are on the reservation. You will never understand until you walk the land, amongst the people to really know that, there are good people. And then in every culture, in every race, there's good and bad. But, we're all human beings, but it's sometimes the behavior that causes it, stereotyping.
Right.
So I think those are the two main things that I see when it comes to Indians. Or we're always reaching our hands out for to the government or to people. We're needy, but you know what? People don't really understand that, we had sacrificed, our ancestors had sacrificed this land.
Right.
So I think they've never compensated. So there's a lot of misconceptions about, we don't pay taxes, the government takes care of us, and that is not so. Just like anybody else, throughout the United States, they rely on government, for like FEMA right now. We're going to have a lot of people, a lot of communities, applying for FEMA, and hopefully FEMA can help.
Right. And what about, I think the biggest one that I hear from where I am is that all Native American people receive big fat checks every month from the casinos. Will you talk about that for just a second?
Well, I guess they know more than we do. That's one of the things that I always say, God, you know more than me, being the person that you're talking about, There's over 560 some Native American tribes, and every one of them is different. And whether there's casinos, we don't get help. Like for our reservation, the little casino, the population really doesn't come up with a lot of the funds to give per capita payments, to each individual. However, it goes out to the districts, for emergencies, But you have the small casino tribes that thrive very well by giving their people housing and giving them money, like Shakopee, they get a lot of money, and in return that tribe helps many other tribes that are in need. But it's according to population, large land-based tribes that probably struggle the most compared to the other tribes. And also there's the Public Law 280 states, which is pretty much the coastal states that work with the states. So they call them Public Law 280 states, and they're totally different too.
Okay. Thank you for talking about that, because that's one of the things, at Gathering Thunder, oftentimes I bump into that misconception. And, there's just this thought that it's just a broad-based thought that everyone receives a very large check every month. And so trying to explain that, there's one pot, and it depends on how many are on the tribal reservation, etc. It goes on and on and on. So it's not true. And because of that, there's still great need out there. So thank you for talking about that, Chuy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things too is you have royalties coming from some of the reservation land that kind of helps the people. Like I can use Crow Tribe as an example. They get per capita every 3-4 months, I think 3 times a year from coal that was extracted from their land. And so they made a big pact with the government or the state, that they shall pay for all the damages and all the coal, that was taken out. The Osage tribe down in Oklahoma, they were pretty much booted off of their land because of the oil way back in the early 50s. Mm-hmm. So some of those tribes being small, the royalties that come from timber and stuff, and I wish that would happen with our tribe, with the gold and the timber that was been taken out of our land, up there in South Dakota. Right.
Thank you for sharing that, Chuy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is mass media. That I think I understand that we all evolve with today's world, but the thing about it is how do we retain some of the values from the past? And that's where I struggle quite a bit, just trying to teach the young people. And I worked with a lot of youngsters, and it's like, oh, we're not going to use these values. It's not going to apply. Even my own kids say that, it's just like, it's not going to apply. It's not going to work in today's world. But how do we go ahead, or how do I know that what we lived and the way it was in the past could still be used today? The virtues, the compassion, the humility, the respect, and how we treat our elders. Even thinking about child development, we had a way of raising our children, like for instance, the breastfeeding, or at the age of 4, they start training us, to comprehend what life is all about. Or like even right now, society says, once you're 18 years old, you're an adult. Well, for us Native Americans, some of us have really thought that, every individual is different, and sometimes our kids don't adult at 18.
Right.
It's almost like, I could hear Dr. Phil, one of the things I can say is Dr. Phil would probably just throw up his hands when he comes to the reservation, because we have a lot of different set values, the old ways, how we enable. He would see it as enabling our people, our own families, our own kids. And sometimes, I think about that to say, are we really dysfunctional? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the compassion that we have, Wachante Ogunanke, is what we say is you carry your heart for somebody you love, so you're going to do this. And I struggle with that on day to day too, in regards to the behavior or the choices that my daughter makes, is I support her, but yet when do I draw the line?
Right. Yeah.
So I struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a lot of people, like we say, and I think you know this, Denise, that, in a house, 2-3 room house, you have at least 17, 20 people living in there,
Yes.
You don't want people out there homeless, so you bring in those people, but in the meantime, I think, sometimes, we struggle with the fact, are we actually enabling these people not to get out on their own?
Well, that is, and what I love about the series you're doing, Chue, is where does the past need to become the present? And where does it need to remain, the ways of the past? When are the ways of the past nurturing and vital and needed? And when are they outmoded? And when do we move forward? This is great discussion, Del. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I think after our generation dies, it's going to change, because for some of us that are still alive, like Chue, Barb, Della, and them, they still stand strong with their beliefs of taking care of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Being there for people, no matter if they're struggling themselves, they're still out there trying to help people, because that's compassion, that's love. You invested so much of your people that you're going to continue. But when that generation dies, I think that's when it's going to be lost. And this is why it's so important for us to teach the young ones to try and hang on to some of that, even the language.
Oh, I agree completely. And Todd and I have talked about that. What is it going to be like? He said to me one time, what is it going to be like when all of your sisters and your brother Guy have passed? What's it going to be like when we go out there, if we're still here? And it's really, it has brought about some really deep conversation at our dinner table about what will that look like? What will it feel like? What will it be like in the homes?
Well, I think for what I can say is what you learned from us, and to know how you felt around us, the love, the compassion we give, that's what you got to hang on to.
Yes.
And try and pass that along.
Yes, I agree. And I know that, even looking at some of our grandchildren and nieces and nephews out there will be those that continue on, and there will be those that break with the tradition. And, kind of what you've always taught is that it really depends on the family, and it depends on, every person is different, every family is different, and there is no right or wrong. It's what's useful, and rather than criticize one another, just understand that everyone has their own way. Did that even make sense, Del?
Oh, no, it does, because, that's quite interesting that you brought up there is no right and wrong. But there was an article that I had read about this professor stating that there is no right or wrong in any culture, and this was in one of my classes. But he had mentioned the Native Americans. He said, if we had lived the way that we knew, or the way they were when we first migrated here and kept, he said, like even our democracy here was pretty much copied by the Iroquois.
Right.
And to know, when you talk about socialism or liberals or whatever, I think in the past, the way the history told us and the way it was kind of communal. I mean, nobody went without because everybody shared.
Yes.
So, in that sense, he said the Native Americans had it good because they they take care of their own. And I mean, in fact, he even mentioned which I never ever experienced growing up when my unchies, the elders were alive. Nobody ever went to a retirement home. But nowadays it's so easy to send your elders to a retirement home and forget about them. Oh, I'll see you, and some of them, never have visitors.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the changes that I've seen, and I struggle with that, and I talk to my kids about some of these things. It's just basically life has changed. And then Dr. Phil also mentions, this is one of the things that I say is, once you're 18, you boot your kids out. Okay, you go out. However, in my worldview, the way I think, I have my sons living with me, but yet I know he feels like a failure, but yet I am just blessed. I am grateful that he's living with me, because I told him, I said, you're the true warrior that is here taking care of your mother, making sure she's okay. You're here, you're protecting me, you help me out, and I appreciate that, because that's what we did to our elders. We catered to them.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't happen in today's society. Our elders are cast out to retirement homes, or they're forgotten.
Right. Well, I know it was interesting being down in Georgia and learning about my father's people. My grandmother raised 15 or 16 children, and on top of that, she also raised other people's children, and anybody else who needed a hot meal and a place to stay, you could always find a place to be at her home, in a very, very tiny, tiny little home. But there is always room and always love and always laughter and food for anybody who needed it. And
I think that's a concept that we grew up with, is put a little bit more water in the soup.
Yeah.
We always had a pot, on the stove. My mom always said, have something cooked, because you might have somebody come, and you can feed them, or add a little bit more flour to the gravy, And that's just the way it is, but it doesn't happen today. It's me, and those are some of the things that I struggle every day. And the good part of it is I can talk about it. I mean, at work, I think I'm more of a distraction at work, because I have so many people. People ask me questions, and yesterday an elderly lady didn't even know there was over 560 Indian tribes. And I said, this is one of the things that I struggle with too, is to know, what is our education system teaching about the subcultures, culture in America?
Right.
You don't get there until you go to college, but what are they teaching? Because they say Wakajaki Nasula Nanujalapi is, what that means is children are still soft in the head to think about. They don't have no concept until you teach them. Right.
That's what I love about your show every month.
But again, that's, I think it's some of those I hear what I have to say, or the thought processes, that we have on our own. We just got to plant the seed, see if it grows.
Right.
It's not going to hurt.
Exactly.
But I think we're out of time, right? Next month, I know you brought up cultural appropriation last time that we talked, and you caught me by surprise, but I think I'd like to elaborate on that next time we have the talk show.
Wonderful.
But if there's more questions, too, during that time, I'd sure like to go ahead and answer, the best I can with any questions that people have.
I think that's going to be a wonderful show, because cultural appropriation seems to be a hot topic, at least from what I see on Facebook and things. And so I'm really thankful that you're willing to dive into that swimming pool and educate people.
Well, I think a lot of it is, it's mind expansion is what I always say. You got to have an open mind and look and quietly quietly observe and open up your eyes and ears, and then you'll learn something. You'll have a change of heart, because people don't really understand a lot of that stuff.
Right. Well, what a wonderful show
right.
today, Chue. Thank you. Wopila.
Yeah, well, thank you. And again, I say thank you. You're always so faithfully prepared for this show, and I really appreciate that.
Well, this show is a blessing, and I learn things every month. Myself. Maybe I'm a little selfish, huh?
Well, I also like to kind of start up a language class too. Della and I maybe do a little language class, if but we'll talk about that more, because I think a lot of times, I use Indian words and you use Indian words sometimes too, and I don't think some of the listeners know what we're talking about. So
I think it's a great idea, Chue.
Yeah. All right. Doksha Ake next month.
Doksha Ake. Have a beautiful day, sister.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.